Welcome back to Great Scott Marcus, episode 27, here on Ramble Entertainment. I'm Scott, and that one's Mark, here where we break out into rambles, small, little, bitty conversations, and then topics. Mark, we just got done talking about having roommates and doing your damn dishes. And so you brought this up. Neither of us are done with The Man in the High Castle Season 2 yet. I am, I think, 3 episodes ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of trucked through those first 5 episodes too. They were pretty darn exciting. I think a lot more immersive within this fictional world. The characters are a bit more connectable this season. But now I think you're probably just starting to see it where like things are kind of stagnating. And I'm kind of happy it's no longer than 10 episodes now. And I'm kind of like in my mind starting to just be like just get to the season finale. Like so you go ahead and start off with where you're at, because I could use some early season hype again.
Sure. I mean, I'm on. I just finished episode 5, and I'm getting this impression that there's so much going on that it's almost. I'm worried that they don't know what to do with so much, and I feel like I'm not sure if it's the writing direction, just the direction. I don't know. It's got.
I hate to tell you that your inkling is basically correct.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much going on, and they're having trouble trying to find which direction they want to go because so many characters are like they have like so many subplots now. Like Frank's got like 4 things going on in his life, and it's just like.
Frank.
Okay.
I actually meant to make this graphic Frank season 2. Here's the thing. I've actually seen this happen before in other TV shows. All of their main characters are too separated.
It really is getting that way.
They're almost completely separate from one another, it makes it difficult, like because you keep kind of moving between these 3 different areas, and I don't want to spoil anything, but honestly, like I feel like there's so much allusion to what is about to happen that I don't think it's a spoiler. And obviously, we're sitting here talking about Man in the High Castle season 2, but I will insert the spoilers graphic when I do this in post. A nuke is coming. A nuke is coming somewhere. This was alluded.
You can look at
this was alluded to in season 1, and like there's so much allusion to it that no matter what, some of these characters I think are dead by the end of the season.
Yeah.
Whether it's in a flash or radiation poisoning or a nuke, and then something else terrible happens.
Well, maybe that'll be good because maybe that'll end up grounding the show. Because like what you said, there's too much disconnect between the characters and everything's just flying off in different directions. Not only the characters, but like
because they're so distant from each. I mean, like the characters were kind of separated to begin with in the first season. However, they still maintained their connection to each other, where Joe was still connected to Obergruppenführer Smith. I can't believe I got that. Damn. Nice.
Since I knew I was going to botch it before we started recording this, I was just going to call him Ubergroper.
Ubergroper, sure.
Ubergroper Smith. Ubergroper Führer Smith. Versus fucking John, because his name's John.
John Smith. Well, so the one podcast I listened to, they actually brought this up, that like John Smith was actually a very powerful name in the colonization of the States.
Right.
And so
there's definitely
there seems to be allusion there. I think of all the characters that shouldn't die, he's probably going to be one of the largest mainstays.
Well, I think he's got one of the more interesting storylines too, because it's about his allegiance to the Fuhrer. Actually, we just learned in episode 5 that he was a U.S.
Okay, so you got to that
military.
part. Yeah, I was just like I was wondering if you got to that part. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like, and that's kind of interesting. Plus, like the thing with his son, I think that's like a really kind of interesting storyline. And
It is.
It just gets
It very
it's
much
very
is.
interesting.
Juliana and Obergruppenführer Smith. That is where I pay attention. I pay attention to Joe. I like Joe, but like Frank and
Like, he's got
fucking
these family problems now, and it's annoying.
Joe.
Joe does. Yeah, that's all it's been like. 'Cause he just went to his
Okay.
dad
So I won't spoil that for you, but I'm going to outright tell you that like there is some importance there.
something. Okay.
It's actually worthwhile.
Okay.
So, like Frank. So here's my problem with all of this illusion going on. It feels like Frank and Robert and extra number 73.
Yeah.
They're going to be the ones to likely be bombed off, or something happens, and it's just so obvious because it's so hard to care about them. Like, oh man, that was a close call, but we got out of that one. Oh, that was a close call too, but we got out of that one, and it's just like. And there's also just so much swirling around them, and it's just like that needs to be turned down from like 12 to 7 at the very least.
It does.
Like,
I mean, I think like Frank's story. Like I like Frank's story, but only part of it. Like when he's finally becoming a part of the resistance. Like I like that, but then it's just like there's got the thing with the oh god, what's it called? The Japanese gangsters, the Yakuza.
Yep.
Like that at this point, what from my like that doesn't need that. Just no, it's not necessary at all.
It's too
and then
much.
They brought in Ed to do that, and I'm like, okay, come on, you're doing too much. And
And
of
did you
course,
see the thing with Ed?
I don't know. I mean, he was brought.
He was in jail.
Yeah.
And then he was
Yakuza,
released
like, came
from-
in the shop, and he's just like, "Oh, do something." I'm like, "Come on, like that." Well, and apparently Frank knows how to defuse bombs, which is, wow, that's impressive for a
that one
whatever
that
it
that
is.
one kind of lost me too.
Yeah.
That was
okay.
just kind of like that seems far too complex for just, like someone who is working in a machine shop, and maybe I missed a detail somewhere. I do think that this is going to be a season that like is absolutely like, if you want to really understand it, need to have a second watch. And I don't think I've disconnected to any point where I would not watch this a second time. However, I think that the strongest part of the season so far has been the first 3 episodes, where like I really feel like the first 3 episodes were actually the conclusion of of last season, and
It kind of should have been.
yeah, and that I was talking to, I think even when we did our fake recording, I guess I'll call it our lost recording, I was saying how into it the first 3 episodes made me. I was just like, it's gripping, and like how the first season, a lot of what was catching was this background, this very skin crawling, like, oh my gosh, like this is what society might have looked like had the Nazis actually won. And with all that in mind, I feel like they brought a lot of that to the foreground in those first 3 episodes. Like I said, the doctor examining Juliana, where it was just it felt very invasive, and just like she had no control over anything. Just like she was a piece of meat and just whatever. And
like she was like a specimen. Basically.
Exactly. And that felt that felt very distant and very foreign. And I think that was very cool. However, after that, a lot starts to just kind of get lost in this rigmarole, where it's just like, and now they're talking to this guy, and this
and she was like, she had nothing to do with the resistance. Then she was like all about the resistance, the man in the high castle. Then she like isn't, and now she is again.
I gotta say, I like that they're showing like this kind of almost ridiculous nature of a resistance, because they're in such a situation, there likely would need to be such an extreme resistance to things, like to have to sacrifice and just be like, well, you saw our leader, you're dead now. Like there would have to be such extenuating things. Refresh my memory. How much do you know about the trade minister at this point?
He's been spending a lot of time in the alternate reality, and at the end of this episode is when like he it's like must be his wife and his
Okay,
son,
so you got that.
and Juliana is holding his son's kid.
Yes. So,
I think that's another kind of issue I've got going on. You've got like this resistance thing going on, which is like really kind of interesting. My mom's calling me. I'll call her back.
tell her I
Like
said
this
hi.
resistance storyline, which is cool, and then you've got the let's say the John Smith storyline, which I think is really interesting. You know how that would operate in a German colonized America, and then you kind of have this war thing going on with the Japanese and how they want to like start against the Germans. And then you got this like sci-fi parallel universe thing going on. It's just like you got four different kinds of stories and dealing all
I think
together.
the connection between some of the disparate elements, I think like the trade minister is basically the plot device that allows these films to move back and forth between these kind of parallel universes.
I text my mom back real quick. Just tell her to call her back in an hour or so.
Yeah. I think that you need to disable iMessage when we do these recordings.
Back in few.
Seriously. You have a phone that can do that and operate on different internet service.
That is true. Sure. Go on.
I lost it.
About the plot devices of all the different storylines coming together.
I think that he's the true man in the High Castle who's bringing these films and trying to get them to the Resistance, but some end up in the hands of the Fuhrer. And I think that now he's kind of the lost element. Like, I'm not sure. Like, I feel like they just need to show that. Like, there's no other reason for the other universes to exist other than to service the main universe that we're watching, where the Nazis rule, and bring the films over. Like, I can't see any other connection. Like, those films just should not exist in that universe without him.
Right.
And I think that's the other interesting aspect of, like, is that even something they'll attempt to explain away? Are they even going to get that far?
I don't know. That's what I'm kind of worried about at this point. You know, I looked up and there is going to be a season 3. It was renewed.
Okay, good.
But what kind of sucks is like I'm only halfway through season 2, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I hope they don't like. I'm worried that they're gonna just kind of start beating a dead horse with all these different plots and these story arcs. I'm like, I hope they end this right because I feel like it has at this point. It could really drag on.
Now we're actually starting to have problems. So did you disable iMessage?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I just got a text on my phone, but
okay.
Yeah.
I'm just seeing stagnation. Anyway, yeah, my PS4 is off. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm sad. Or I guess sad isn't the exact right word. I'm a bit disappointed. No.
Underwhelmed? Whelmed.
Concerned, actually. Because basically what this kind of is Lost, but without all the character connections, more of a connection to the island than the character. I think Juliana formed a great connection with. Joe, decent connection this season. Frank is probably one of the better ones to connect to, yet he's got all of these different elements swirling around him, and that's the reason he's the hardest to connect to in my mind. So, like, there are connections, but at the same time, these characters that matter aren't connected to each other, and it's just like... I'm concerned that, as you kind of just alluded to, like, in the third season, is it going to start to wrap up, or is it just going to continue to
Keep going
unwind?
deeper,
Yeah,
down the rabbit hole.
yeah. And I I wouldn't go as far as to say like I was floored by the first season, but I was definitely talking about it and trying to get people watching.
I mean, yeah, you got me to watch it.
I want.
I mean, and I did, and it's still interesting. I find the environment fascinating. But what's kind of sad is that's still the most fascinating thing for me about the show.
Yeah,
And I don't. And like I said, it's bringing some of those elements to the foreground, like especially I think with John Smith and his son, how a German Reich would run, and you're seeing, that kind of starting to evolve within that main character.
These generals and colonels and leaders basically wanting to kill the Fuhrer or take over and then just bomb the hell out of America. Yeah, unfortunately, ever since about episode 5, I've just been kind of like, let's just get to it. Like, let's just get to it.
Maybe we'll get lucky and maybe we'll actually have some closure at the end of this season.
It's very possible. I don't want to neglect that, but characters that didn't seem to matter, that were just kind of there to fill in, seem to matter more, but at the same time, like, they're there and they matter, but it's just like, who cares? Who fucking cares? Like, it's just like that. It feels like you added way too much when it could have been like, okay, this character doubles down, as like the resistance kind of like leader outside of the man in the high castle, who could be divided into 3 people at this point: the Fuhrer, the resistance leader, and the trade minister. Whoops.
Yeah.
I feel like the true leader, the guy who's out there, boots on the ground, shooting at Juliana, I feel like he could have just been a woman and fucked Frank. Yeah. Like, oh, was that a spoiler for you?
Wait, what?
Never mind.
But Frank and the broad that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You did see that part. Okay. Like it could have just been the resistance leader. Like. At this point, like, it didn't need to. There didn't need to be all of these different characters. I feel like, and yes, there may have been some like, like, could the resistance leader really be an American Japanese, person? And it's just like, who the fuck cares? Like, it's better than what we. It would probably be better than what we have now, and I don't know. Even the Washington guy, like, he was so important in the first season, and now he's kind of drowned out. Like, and so
he's there for he's there as a transport, and that's literally all he's been doing is driving people around.
I think the one thing I do want to say, closing out my thoughts before I finish the season with you, I do like this kind of exposure to potentially what, like, German high life could potentially have looked like. More legal drugs, kind of more sexual promiscuity, I guess, which is interesting because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, which I might be on this, I'm not a history buff, but I do, I feel like I've read enough to parrot this as a potential fact. I'm fairly certain Germans did not like religion. So they were actually trying to dismantle religion within the Reich, and so that makes sense that, like, it's a lot more almost modern day as we see it, where it's just like drugs and sexual promiscuity, and drinking and alcohol and drugs, and so like a lot of that kind of makes sense. I might be wrong on that, but either way, I think that kind of exposure to that is pretty cool. So
no, I think you're right on that though. I remember when they're doing the pledge and stuff. They're pledging to Hitler.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to God, and not their allegiance is to Hitler. And when Juliana was like studying for that exam, they're talking about like all justice is decided by the Fuhrer. So he is kind of the God figure of the Reich.
Yeah.
So you're probably right there. And of course, he was all about progressive and being the best. So that would make sense why the technology is what it is that you see in the show.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we get some closure out of it. I'm halfway through, and even from the start, I've just been like, all right, how how is this gonna go? So
Yeah, I really liked those first episodes.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, there were a lot of questions. There were a lot of questions of like, what directions are these going?
Yeah, I like the Lost analogy. They're definitely raising more questions right now without a glimpse of an answer, which could be problematic.
Let's move on. All right.